अनिरोधमनुत्पादमनुच्छेदमशाश्वतम् अनेकार्थमनानार्थमनागममनिर्गमम् यः प्रतीत्य समुत्पादं प्रपञ्चोपशमं शिवं देशयामास सम्बुद्धस्तं वन्दे वदतां वरम् न स्वतो नापि परतो न द्वाभ्यां नाप्यहेतुतः उत्पन्ना जातु विद्यन्ते भावाः क्वचन केचन. Welcome everyone to our second class on the Dharmapada, the teachings of Buddha, the enlightened one who lived so many years ago in India and Nepal, in fact. It is surprising that people often associate the Buddha only with India, when in reality his birthplace and the place where his parents lived is right on the border to India in Nepal. Of course, back in those days, Nepal and India were not separate countries. Rather, they were provinces of the same country, so to speak. It was like going to Berkshire from London. Today, if Berkshire reaches its independence from England, then Berkshire is, of course, a separate country. And this is what has happened over the millennia, and that is all right. Those of you who attended last time, I gave you an outline of the Buddha's life story up to the point where he entered the forest with the decision to seek the path to overcoming suffering and dissatisfaction. The Buddha realized that life is not a party. It ends in dissatisfaction. It ends ultimately in misery of some or the other kind. Even if you are Her Majesty the Queen herself, you will nonetheless experience dissatisfaction, some kind of misery. Even if you have had the most wonderful life, you yourself might not experience so much misery, but then your loved ones do. So if you are not a psychopath who only cares about himself or herself, you will feel misery because others are feeling misery. Does that make sense? Anyone who claims that the Buddha's insight that we are surrounded by dissatisfaction is untrue should kindly look at their own mind and wonder the following: am I perhaps a sociopath? Am I perhaps a psychopath? Is that the reason I don't see that people suffer? Because if I am not a sociopath or a psychopath, I will actually realize that others suffer even when I don't suffer. Yes? So the people, now I'm joking, of course, and some people have complained that I always joke, but the people who say, I don't want to wear a mask when I go to the supermarket because I'm not afraid of becoming ill. Well, all right, that's great. But others might become ill because of you. So if you're not a psychopath, if you're not a sociopath, you will know that the Buddha was right. Of course, we are surrounded by dissatisfaction. Of course, we are surrounded by people who are full of misery and suffering. So when the Buddha went out into the forest to find a path that would lead to freedom from dissatisfaction, he didn't do so with a sense, I want to find that for myself only. It was with a sense of, I want to find a lasting solution. And last time, I already mentioned that he had two teachers. They were called Uddaka Ramaputra, and the other one was Āchārya Vidyābhāskar. These are strange names, but we can imagine that people had these names. And interestingly, there is a tradition that claims the Buddha did not appreciate his teachers. That is so untrue. Those who know the Pali Canon, which records the life of the Buddha, will also know that he constantly refers to his teachers. It's very strange that people claim this. And I have traced this a little bit, because as you know, I'm also an academic, and I love to trace the history of things. And you will be surprised, this tradition of claiming that the Buddha didn't appreciate his teachers actually goes back to our dearly beloved British Orientalists, the British academics in the 19th century who didn't like teachers, who didn't like gods and goddesses, who didn't like the idea that you learn from someone, who had the imagination that the Buddha was a revolutionary, who did this all by himself, who went to the forest and somehow magically, mysteriously, by himself attained enlightenment. That was their imagination, really. Please trust me on this. The Buddha never claimed that he had done this by himself, ever. The Buddha clearly describes how his teachers brought him up to the highest possible level of samadhi, where you experience nothing at all. And then the Buddha felt that this is not full enlightenment yet. And he went to the Bodhi tree, as I mentioned last time, this sacred tree. He sat under that tree and he promised to himself, I shall not emerge from samadhi, from absolute absorption until I am enlightened. He didn't say, my teachers are useless, I'm going to do this all by myself. Oh my goodness, he never said that. He said, I am going to practice what my teachers taught me, and I will go beyond this state of nothingness. Now, my dearly beloved, there is another allegation that people in modern times have. They say that the Buddha taught the highest to be nothingness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. No, the Buddha said, I will now sit under this tree until I have transcended the experience of nothingness. Then I will attain enlightenment. So I am sometimes really shocked. My hair stands on end when I read these statements about the Buddha. The Buddha didn't like teachers. The Buddha said he will do it all by himself. The Buddha said nothingness is the high. What? The Buddha said nothingness is the high? What are you talking about? Do you even know any Pali? Pali is the language of the Buddha. Do you know a word of Pali? Before you made that statement, I'm talking about the Britishers in the 19th century. Do you know even know in your dreams what the Buddha taught? The Buddha never said that nothingness is the highest. No, he said nothingness is the obstacle to enlightenment. And when you transcend nothingness, then you are enlightened. These are the words of the Buddha. If you don't believe me, please stay in this class and you will come to know. So now, my dears, we are of course just at the beginning of this class. We haven't reached the state of nothingness yet. But I just want to tell you, anyone who has this preconception in their mind, you already know now that it isn't true. It is not about nothingness. It is not about some state of boredom where you are, I love Eckhart Tolle, don't mind, but where you are in a constant state of Eckhart Tolle's presence. No, no, no. That is not the teaching of the Buddha. The teaching of the Buddha is a state of absolute, vivid clarity beyond conceptions, beyond any limitations, a state of absolute bliss and wisdom. That is enlightenment for the Buddha. But we aren't there yet. We are getting there. First, what now was the initial teaching of the first two verses of the Dharmapada? I'm not going to test you yet, but let me tell you, one of these days I will ask one of you to repeat what we have been teaching, because this is not an entertainment class. This is not a stand-up comedy of Eddie Murphy or Mr. Bean. This is a teaching about the Buddha's Dharmapada. So I will ask you one day, Neelam, what have we actually talked about, all right? But today is not the day, don't you worry. I will repeat it for you. The Buddha begins this lofty discourse, this lofty teaching, with the most powerful statement ever made, probably in the history of statements. He says, all experiences occur within the mind. The mind is their chief. They happen to the mind. Therefore, if someone speaks or acts with a negative mind, suffering will follow that person like the wheel follows the foot of a bull pulling a cart. How powerful. All experiences occur to the mind or within the mind. What does the Buddha mean when he talks about experiences? He means 4 types of experiences. If you like, you can make notes. This is also being recorded, so you can also look at the recording later. He means bodily sensations, kaya, feelings, vedana, mental states, chitta, and mental insights, called dhammas by the Buddha. 4 things: bodily sensations, kaya, feelings, vedana, mental states, and mental insights. Don't worry, we will deeply analyze these in the course of this Dharmapada teaching. The Buddha's insight is that in reality, there is nothing but these 4 types of experiences. You can check yourself. Are there any experiences that are outside the range of these 4? Body, feelings, mind, means mental thoughts, processes, and then the insights that the mind has. Is there anything outside of that? Check carefully. I have looked quite deeply at many different systems of meditation, and all of them merit great attention. All of them lead to the absolute reality, no doubt. But the system of the Buddha is quite remarkable because it is so simple. He breaks it down into such simple principles. The 4 foundations of meditation are the body, kaya, feelings, vedana, mental thoughts or states, citta, and mental insights, dhammas. Is there anything outside of that? I can't find anything. If you like, my dears, you could, as your homework later, spend an hour or 2 trying to find if any experiences occur apart from these 4. All right? And then the next verse was where the Buddha turns it around and he says, all experiences occur within the mind. The mind is their chief. They happen only to the mind. Therefore, if someone speaks or acts with a positive mind, a serene mind, happiness follows him or her like a shadow that never departs. How simple is that? Once we realize that it is our mind, the mind is not only here, it's also in the heart. In the Buddhist approach, mind is not just rational here in the Ajna chakra, it is also in the Hridaya chakra, the guha. You will see this later in the text. The Buddha doesn't have a distinction between rational mind and emotional mind. The mind is here and it's also here in the heart. But for the Buddha, since everything is appearing within mind, we have to work on our mind. When our mind is negative, we shouldn't blame others. Oh, it was my husband who is evil. Oh, it was my boss who is evil. It was my father who is evil, or my brother, or my mother, or my guru, or my whatever. No, no, no. The Buddha says, no, it's your mind that you have to look at. Whether those people are or were evil or not, that's not even the point. The point is that this positivity or this negativity is occurring in your mind. Therefore, you have to look at your mind. And without further ado, we now come to verses 3 and 4, where he exactly talks about this. In the ancient tradition of learning, I would like to repeat these verses in Pali, the language of the Buddha, which is quite similar to Sanskrit. It is like Scottish and London English. The Buddha spoke Scottish and the other sages of India spoke London English. Victorian Queen's English is the language of Shankaracharya, and the Buddha spoke Scottish, like Mel Gibson in Braveheart. If you've seen it, quite a nice movie. Freedom, he shouts at the end, right? And the Buddhist path is about freedom. And Dharma in general, all Dharma, whether you call it Hindu Dharma or Buddhist Dharma or Jain Dharma, it's always about freedom, isn't it? So Braveheart ends with freedom. Wonderful movie to watch. Now the Buddha says, verses 3 and 4. Akochimam, avadhimam, ajinimam, ahasimam, ye chatam upanahyanti, veram tesam nasamati. Akochimam, avadhimam, ajinimam, ahasimam, ye chatam nupanahyanti, veram te supasamyati. He scolded me. Now the Buddha is quoting someone. He scolded me. He beat me. He defeated me. He robbed me. For those who hold on to such feelings, their hatred is never pacified. I'll repeat this. He scolded me. He beat me, or she. Doesn't matter. In Pali, he or she is the same. I'm just using he because I happen to be a man, but I could also say she. She scolded me. She beat me. She defeated me. She robbed me. For those who hold on to such feelings, their hatred is never pacified, the Buddha says. And then the second verse. He scolded me. He beat me. No, yes, for sure he did that. He defeated me. He robbed me. For those who do not hold on to such feelings, their hatred is pacified. How simple. I'll just say it one more time. She scolded me. She beat me. She defeated me. She robbed me. But for those who do not hold on to such feelings, their hatred is pacified. Do you understand this teaching? Forgiveness is a much greater force than harboring ill will and hatred. Maitri, which in the Buddha's Pali is called metta, means to, with your full heart, embrace the whole world, the Buddha says. You will see this later in the Dharmapada. To embrace the whole world like a mother, her children, and to forgive each and all by saying, may you be truly happy, may you be at ease. That is called metta. By forgiving and letting go, our feelings of ill will towards others subside, they end. And our mind instantly becomes serene and happy. Now you will see later in the text, the teaching doesn't mean we don't show boundaries to others. It doesn't mean we don't hiss like a snake when others are endangering us or our loved ones or our family or our clan or whatever it is. No, we have to hiss. But that doesn't mean we hate. It just means we're showing the boundary. We're saying, no, my dear, this is the boundary. Right here is the boundary. You see? And when you do that, you are actually benefiting others. Why? Because people who do not know their boundaries are actually harming themselves, aren't they? If your coworker is taking advantage of you, he or she is harming themselves. It is not correct to do that. So, without any negativity, without any hatred, without any ill will, when you show your coworker the boundary, you are actually doing them a service. Do you see that? And you will see this is the teaching of the Buddha. You will see later. But first, my dears, we need to understand this teaching of his where he says, blaming others, playing the victim. Oh, I am the one. Everyone beat me. I am the victim of everything. Everyone else, it's always the others, it's never me. Buddha says, this kind of thinking never leads to peace, he says. In the third verse, it never leads to peace. Never, ever. Not in 100 lives does the attitude that you are the victim of others lead to peace. No. What leads to peace is acknowledging, yes, for sure, others have harmed me, but then I also harmed others, didn't I? I also harmed others. Now, sometimes for sure, we are less the perpetrator and more the victim, for sure, no doubt. But very often, you will be surprised, we are just as much the perpetrator as we are the victim. But it is the nature of the mind to say, I am the victim, I'm not the perpetrator. Why? Because, I'll give you an example. Parents are always seen as almighty. If my father or my mother was not nice to me, then I am the victim of them, isn't it? This is what modern psychology tells you. And I'm not a fan of modern psychology. Of course, there are some positive things in it, no doubt. I am much more a fan of ancient psychology. Ancient psychology doesn't tell you in endless sessions of psychotherapy, yes, you poor little baby, your mother didn't treat you well. She didn't praise you so much. Therefore, it is justified that you have an inferiority complex. Or your father was sometimes a little mean to you. You poor little baby. It is justified that for the rest of your life, you have an inferiority complex. You see, I'm exaggerating here, but that's exactly, in my opinion, and my dears, I've actually studied psychology, all right? I've done my PhD courses in psychology, all right? So I'm not just making something up here, but that's what modern psychology is suggesting, that the root of all problems are the parents and early childhood. My poor little baby. In the early childhood, all these problems happened, and now forever and ever and ever, I'm going to have psychological complexes and neuroses, and I'm never, ever going to come out of it. You see, this kind of thinking is actually what the Buddha is suggesting you not to do, isn't it? We just read it. He says, don't say, no, he says, acknowledge it, but don't stay with the feelings. Yes, acknowledge. My father scolded me. My father may have even beat me. That's not nice. But you can also beat someone with words, not just physically. He defeated me. Yes, for sure. My brother always defeated me. For sure, in school, when I was a 7 or 8-year-old, I was the loser. Everyone chose me last. Now, fortunately, I was quite good at sports. No one would think that now, isn't it? But I really was. I was good at sports. I was always chosen first in basketball. I was always chosen first in football. No, not in football, second in football. And I was great at table tennis and at chess. But now some people disagree that chess is actually a sport. But you do have to move a little, right? So it strengthens your tummy muscles. Because, right, you have to lean forward. And so, and it's also a sport of the mind. So fortunately, I was not defeated in my childhood. But later, when I was 12, and when we moved to Rishikesh, strangely, in the ashram where I stayed, they said, never do sports. Sports are bad. Never play chess. Never do anything that makes you sort of have some pleasure. Well, and after that, of course, I became terrible at sports. So that means after the age of 12, I never played any sports. So if we play sports now, you will defeat me for sure. Have I ever been robbed? Oh yes, for sure. Once on the way from Rishikesh to Delhi in a bus, I had this wallet, and there were, I think, I can't remember the figure, but it was something like $400 or so. I had $400 in this wallet, and I had it in my kurta. And then a lady came into the bus with her baby, and I was there with my friend. And then we turned around and we were playing with this baby, the goody, goody, goody little baby. You know, we were playing with the baby. And while we were playing with the baby, the mother somehow brilliantly, with a knife, or maybe it might have been a shaving knife or something like that, with one sweep, she cut open my kurta and my wallet. And she left the Indian rupees inside the wallet, but she took out the $400 US. How brilliant is that? So when we emerged from the bus in Delhi, and I realized that with one sweep of a knife, she had cut open my kurta and my wallet. That's brilliant, right? There was only one cut. How do you do that? That is so skillful. When I saw that, I was overjoyed with admiration at the skill. That is brilliant. Where do you learn that? Is there a school for that or something? It's brilliant. Moreover, look at the distraction. How better to distract someone than with a baby? Like you bring a baby and then everyone's turning around, goody, goody, goody little baby, and you're playing with the baby, and then she's taking your 400. That's brilliant, isn't it? And I swear on my own life, not for one instant was I unhappy. I really had no feeling of ill will towards this lady. I mentally, innerly congratulated her. Do you know why? Because this lady must have done that from absolute necessity. You don't do that other than if you are in need, isn't it? And of course you can say, she's part of a mafia and she's part of a group of gangsters, or she's handing in the cash to the gang. No problem. The fact that she is in that group shows there is some need. There is some deep suffering going on. And I happen to be privileged that losing $400 never killed me. I did not go without a meal because of that, you see? Whereas she and her baby need that money, even if she's part of organized crime, no problem, you see? So what I want to tell you is this. I did not hold on to a feeling of being a victim for 1 second even, not of a millisecond even at that time. Of course, I've done that in other situations in my life, but clearly I'm not going to tell you those, right? So I'm telling you the one where I didn't do it, yeah? So, she's laughing. So that would be silly, right? If I told you the ones where I did feel I was a victim, then I'm not a good example. So obviously I'm telling you the ones where I didn't do it. So the Buddha is suggesting us never to feel that we're victims, but to acknowledge it for sure. Yes, sure, someone scolded me, someone insulted me. Sure, someone beat me, someone hurt me. Sure, someone made me look like a loser. Loser, right? Someone made me look like a loser. Sure, someone took something away from me. You don't only rob people of their money, you can also rob people of their partner. Or you can rob people of, I don't know, status. Like someone thinks that he's really important, and then you rob them of their status. And then the person feels, oh, I was so important and now I'm no longer important, right? You can do so many kind of robbing, right? So But the point here is the Buddha is suggesting not to hold on to the feelings. Yes? He's not suggesting to ignore the fact that you were robbed. He is suggesting not to hold on to the feeling. Yes? And he gives us a path. This is called the path of mindfulness. You will see, if you stay in the class, you will see what it is. The eightfold path leading to absolute mindfulness, absolute awareness, where we learn actually through his method, his technique, which is called Satipatthana, we learn through his method to actually let go of these feelings and thus to become incredibly happy. You will be so happy, Neelam, if you practice this path, you will be so happy that you will be bored of being happy in this path. You will be tired of being happy and you will wonder, is there any way I can undo this? I want to go back to my previous state where I was sometimes unhappy, right? I'm paraphrasing the words of Donald Trump. If anyone has paid close attention, Trump said, we will be winning so much that you will be tired of winning, right? That was his promise. So my promise to you is, if you practice the Buddha's path, you will be so happy that you will be tired of being happy. Yeah, but it's true, because the awareness becomes so vivid, it becomes so clearly brilliant and clear that you just can't be unhappy, because the Buddha teaches you instantly to know the unhappiness and to let it go. Even bodily suffering, he says, you can experience it with such clarity that even the bodily suffering suddenly turns into a kind of serenity, which is quite difficult to believe. Even emotional, remember these four: body, feelings, thoughts, and mental insights. He says that even emotional feelings can be instantly recognized for what they are, and then you can let go of them and you can rest in the mind's stream of clarity. This is called pasadhi in Pali, prasrabdhi in Sanskrit. Pasadhi is a stream of clarity where you can always come back to that instantly, the Buddha says, if you practice his path. Whatever arises, a bodily experience, a feeling, a mental state, or some mental insight, you can instantly know it. This is called sati. You can instantly know it. And then you can reach pasadhi, which is the state of clarity. But don't worry, we are going to get you there. Yes, we're going step by step. Now, I will read one more verse and the translation. And this verse is simply the explanation of the previous two verses, where he had said, that person injured me, did this and that. One who doesn't let go of the feeling of being the victim will never pacify the hatred, whereas one who lets go of the feeling pacifies the negativity, the hatred. And now he's just summarizing that and giving us the explanation. Nahi verena verani samanti kadachanam averena cha samanti esa dhammo sanantano. This is also beautiful in its Sanskrit translation, because in very ancient times already, people translated the Buddha's words into Sanskrit. So the Sanskrit version goes like this: Nahi vairena vairani shamyanti hakadachana avairena tu shamyanti esha dharma sanatana. Hatreds or negativities are never pacified through more hatred or negativity. It is through non-hatred or no negativity, freedom from negativity, that they are pacified. This is Sanatana Dharma. This is the eternal Dharma. I'll repeat this. Hatreds or negativity are never pacified through more hatred or more negativity. It is through non-hatred, freedom from negativity, that they are pacified. This is Sanatana Dharma. This is the eternal Dharma. Do you understand this? When you have negativity with someone, or with yourself, even just with yourself, let us say you wake up in a bad mood, you do not pacify or dissolve that bad mood through more of it, by having more of a bad mood. No, you pacify it by recognizing the bad mood, by letting go of the bad mood, and giving rise to what you will later learn, which is called pasanti. The Buddha teaches us step by step how to do that. But it starts with the recognition that the bad mood is arising in your mind. This is what he taught in the first 2 verses. It begins with this clear acknowledgement and recognition that no matter what the source of the bad mood is, it might just be biology. Neelam, it might be your biology. Or Amit, it might be your biology. You might have eaten something that's causing the bad mood. Or Hanuman might have, I'm really just joking, Hanuman might have had 4 coffees rather than 1, and therefore has a bad stomach now, right? This is simply biology. That's why the Buddha talks about the 4 things we must acknowledge: the body, feelings, mental states or thoughts, and mental insights. The body is right there, my dears. He's not saying to go beyond the body, as some people think. He says, no, no, you have to acknowledge the body. That is the whole point here. So, Neelam, if it is just biology that you're in a bad mood, you must acknowledge the biology of it. You must find the remedy for that biological issue. You might have a strong headache because of some tension in your neck. Now, Neelam, you're quite young, right? So you might not have that yet, but others do. Very often, migraine, you know, this, my head, that very often is based on tension in the neck. Now, those of you who don't know this, because you haven't studied yoga, you haven't studied Pilates or some or Reiki or some West Eastern method of healing, because you don't know that the source of your headache is in your neck, you think you need to take endless aspirin. That's fine. Aspirin sort of thins the blood, and it helps you to relax a little bit, and that then has the effect that your headache recedes. That's fine, no problem. But if you knew that the actual source of your migraine and headache is in your neck, what would you do? You would remedy that, wouldn't you? So when the Buddha says that we must understand body, feelings, thoughts or mental states and insights, when he says we must understand these in order to reach serenity and clarity, that is actually what he means. Understanding them is not just, all right, I've got a headache. And now what? No, no, it is to understand what the source of the headache is. It is to become highly intelligent and to actually understand yourself. And similarly, when you have feelings in turbulence, when your emotions are in a roller coaster, the Buddha isn't just suggesting to say, no, right, I got all these feelings, and now what? No, no, he's suggesting that you witness your feelings, you recognize them for what they are, that you understand, for instance, that you are hurt because your boyfriend said something mean to you. For instance, if Neelam's boyfriend didn't reply to her WhatsApp where she wrote him, I miss you, supposing she wrote that to him at 9 o'clock in the evening, and he didn't even bother to reply. That's not nice. But then, if Neelam witnesses her emotions and her feelings, she's not going to hold on to them if she follows the Buddha's teaching. She won't say, my boyfriend didn't reply, and make herself go into a state of madness and upset. No, no, no. She will understand her emotions, and she will recognize that the reason she is upset is, of course, that her boyfriend didn't reply, and that this triggered other emotions, of course. But if Neelam follows the teaching of the Buddha, she won't hold on to those feelings. She will only recognize them. And when they come back, she will again recognize them. And she will again not hold on to them. Does that make sense? And then, mysteriously, as you will see later in the text, she will also give rise to boundless metta or maitri for her boyfriend, a boundless sense of kindness. And then, if it is meant to be, her boyfriend will write her in the morning, my dearly beloved, I am so sorry. My battery was off. My battery was out. And I fell asleep. I was so exhausted and tired at 9:30. I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, I saw your messages. I'm so sorry. Now, do you see the difference? Now, this is, of course, if it is meant to be. If her boyfriend is not meant to be her boyfriend, no problem. No problem. Then one day the relationship will dwindle and all good things come to an end. And then one day Neelam will have a wonderful boyfriend, and maybe she might have a husband one day, right? So the point is just the holding on and the victimization. I am the victim. I'm the victim. Holding on to it. The Buddha says that's never going to dissolve anything. No negativity, no enmity, no hatred, nothing ever dissolves through more negativity. Not one instant of negativity dissolves negativity. Please understand this. But this doesn't mean we don't protect ourselves against others who are being mean to us. We set the boundary. Have you understood the teaching? Yes? So next time we will continue with verse 6. Any questions, my dears? You're free to ask whatever comes to your mind, except politics. No questions about politics, all right? Please go ahead. You can put them in the chat. You can also put them in verbal spoken. Just unmute yourself and speak. Yes, Neelam?
I wanted to ask, do you have any books that I could read on Buddha? just to help with all this.
Yes, Neelam, at the moment, I would recommend you not to read books, because you're reading together with us. We're reading the book of the Buddha's teaching. So if you go through this slowly, we've only done 5 verses now. If you go through this slowly, but actually learn it and implement what he's saying, you will benefit much more than if you read a big fat book by going through it and sort of think, that's nice, all right, next page, that's nice, next page. And then you're not actually implementing it, Neelam. Because you'll see the Buddha, I think in the next 10 verses, the Buddha criticizes those who don't implement what he's saying. So I would strongly recommend you to actually pay highest attention to this. And don't worry, Neelam, I will be sending out the translations I have been talking about, these 5 verses with a small commentary. I will be sending out to all of you very soon, hopefully in the next 3-4 days. And you can go through this again and again. And you can start implementing what he's saying, where you begin to witness, oh yes, it's true. My feelings do arise in my mind. They don't happen to arise outside of my mind. Therefore, when I'm in a bad mood, I can actually let go of the bad mood by recognizing it. Do you see? So it would be much more precious, Neelam, for you to implement the teaching of the Dharmapada. And then by the end of these 423 verses in 26 chapters, by the end of it, Neelam, you will know more about Buddhism, about the path of the Buddha, than the author of that book. I promise you that. Because the author of that book will have written that book with a sense of, I want to be an author. I want to publish books. I want to make money of people who want to read Buddhist books, you see? But by doing that, the author of that book has violated the first principle of the Buddha's teaching, which is don't charge for teachings. If people want to voluntarily make a gift to a Buddhist teacher, that is their own generosity, but you can never charge for a teaching. Do you see? By charging for the book, the person has violated the Buddha's first teaching. Therefore, Neelam, can you understand why I am actually against books? It comes as a surprise, doesn't it? How can he be against books when he has 60,000 books? How can he be against them? I am against them because they're not following the teachings of the meditation masters. Do you see this?
Yep.
So do you also understand why I'm suggesting you not to read a big fat book? But Neelam, of course, if you do want to read a big fat book, then I can recommend that to you later, perhaps in 3-4 months, when you've begun to understand the Buddha, you know, the Dharma a little bit.
Thank you, Guruji.
Yeah. I'll then make a good recommendation, and I'll recommend you one where the publishers are not making money of it, where they're supporting some charity or something, like a Buddhist monastery or something like that, you know, where I know that they're actually following the teaching of the Buddha. Yes? Any other questions?
First of all, I'm Lata.
Sorry, can you come closer to your microphone?
Yes. I am Dula Moide. I wanted to know, I'm from Bhopal. I wanted to know, you told let go of bodily suffering. How can you let go and not feel those sufferings?
Careful. The Buddha is not suggesting you not to feel the suffering. He is suggesting you not to hold on to it. Do you see the difference between feeling it? Yes, no doubt it is coming up in me. No doubt it is coming up. And no doubt I am witnessing it, but holding on to it is something else. Holding on to it is like, I'll give you an example. So, would you agree that this is a cup, right? It's a cup. Now, this cup is not very heavy, my dear. This cup is maybe 300 grams, something like that. This is not very heavy. And I have big muscles, right? With a little bit of fat below. So it's not heavy. But now, my dear, if I hold on to this for longer than 3 minutes, what happens?
Hand will pain.
Sorry?
Hand will pain. The hands will pain.
Correct. And why? I'm so strong, am I not? Why? This is only 300 grams. It's nothing.
Yes, yes.
But my hand will start shaking if I do this for longer than 7 minutes, right? It starts shaking. And then, my back will start hurting. So do you see, my dear, if you hold on, initially the holding on seems like nothing. But if you hold on to a feeling, it is like holding on to a cup. It becomes more and more burdensome. It becomes a greater and greater burden the longer you hold on to it. Do you understand? Whereas, if you just forgive the cause of that feeling, supposing your boyfriend or your husband said something mean to you, if you just forgive it, even though they said it, you see, madam, the point is not that they didn't say, of course they said it. The Buddha didn't say you should ignore that they said it. He says, don't hold on to the feeling it caused in you. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent. And don't worry, the next time I will start introducing you to the Buddha's method of how to let go. I haven't talked about that really. It is called Satipatthana. I will talk about that. That is why, we are going slowly, slowly, slowly. And by the end of this course, you will all hopefully experience the Buddha's samadhi. There are 8 levels of samadhi for the Buddha. And I hope that all of you will have entered the second one by the end of this course. And I'm serious about this. It is not so difficult. People say it is so difficult. No, it is not, if you have actually learned how. All right? But it begins with this. It begins with the recognition that everything arises in your mind. And then the next step is not to hold on to the feelings of victimization. No matter what others did and said, you don't hold on to the feeling inside you, because you recognize that more negativity doesn't solve negativity. Yeah? These are the 2 things we have covered so far. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I wanted to tell you today is Teachers' Day in India.
Okay.
So, pranam to you and thank you very much for all that you're doing for us.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
We're very lucky to have you, sir.
I'm lucky that you are listening, because otherwise it would only be my wife listening, and she's very fed up of my monologues, so I'm lucky to have you. Any other questions, or shall we finish? I'm just seeing now that people have written into the chat. I'm so sorry. Someone asked, did the Buddha believe in karma? Well, my dear, not only did he believe in karma, he is probably the origin of the insight on karma. And you will see that in the course of this course of this text, Dharmapada, you will see, but madam, we don't need to believe in karma. Karma is simply cause and effect. Now, what will happen, I won't do it, don't worry. What will happen if I drop this cup? Right, so it will fall. This is called a law of cause and effect. Me letting it go is the cause, and there are other causes as well. Gravity is also a cause. And we will, in the course of this course, we will talk about the 4 types of causes the Buddha talked about. Chatvara pratyaya. There are 4 types of causes, according to the Buddha. The underlying cause is gravity. But this is called the immediate cause. This is called the immediate cause. Letting go is the immediate cause. The underlying cause is gravity. All right? So, and then of course there's also the intention, which is another cause, right? My intention to drop it is another type of cause. You understand how brilliant the Buddha was. So my dear, karma is not a belief. Karma is simply a highly scientific and inner scientific analysis that every negative emotion has a negative effect, and every negative action is actually based on a negative emotion. Therefore, the negative emotion plus the negative action will have a negative effect. This is just a science. Similarly, every positive emotion coupled with every positive act will have a positive effect. This is simply science, an inner science, all right? Then someone says, how do we set a boundary towards someone in a good way? Renukaji, this is quite simple. You just set the boundary, but you do it with love, like you would towards a child. We have a 7-year-old child. If we didn't set him boundaries, well, he will turn into the next Donald Trump. We have to set him boundaries. We have to say, no, stop it, right? But we do that with love. So similarly, we do that with love for all beings. Do you really think I'm someone you can mess with, Neelam? Do I look like someone you can mess with? No, right? I mean, you can say yes if you want to, but I don't think I look like someone who you can mess with. So obviously I have Maitri, metta for all beings, and yet you can't mess with me. That's what we mean, Renukaji, yeah? And then someone asks, if practicing Maitri and notice holding on, and then judgment for holding on when thinking about people you have aversion to, how do you dissolve the enmity in the practice? Well, you really just continue recognizing it. And my dear, I won't say who, because these people actually sent it privately. I'm sorry, Renukaji, I know you sent it privately, I'm sorry. So the point is here, my dear sir, you need to do it. I know that you don't do it. You see, this is the issue. You are thinking about it theoretically. If you did it, if you actually did it, recognizing the enmity and the anger, if you really did it, not just thinking about it, it would dissolve, really. It's simply, come on, everyone knows it does. For 2,500 years we have known it does. You can't be the first person where it doesn't, all right? So if you just did it, actually noting, clearly recognizing the state, this is aversion, clearly recognizing it, staying with it, again and again recognizing, and then continuing to generate Maitri for that person while you are recognizing your own negativity and aversion. It has to dissolve. It has to. And my dear, if it doesn't, we will request your brain after you have died 70 years from now, so that they can analyze why your brain of all brains was the one where it didn't work. All right? 2,500 years of all brains, it worked, but then with your brain, it didn't. We will get your brain and we will do an MRI. No, not an MRI. We will take your skull apart and we will find out why. But I don't think that's really needed. You just need to do it. And you will realize that your brain is not an exceptional brain. It is exactly like all other brains and all other minds. And if you recognize aversion, irritation, anger, hatred, and you generate maitri or metta, it will dissolve. Really? Last question. Or is this a statement? Someone says, this is where maitri becomes a wedge to insert, I find. I'm not sure this is a question or a statement.
A statement, Vidyābhāskar ji. It's
All right.
written.
All right. So
When I feel I'm going down a slippery slope and feeling towards, that's where I have to put myself away for about 5 minutes and just calm down and bring maitri into it. And it really does make it go away. So it was just a statement.
And that is the teaching of the Buddha. You will see in the Metta Karaniya Sutta, you will see this as when we go through this course. That's what he says. And I'm just about to finish. The disciples of the Buddha, this is a true story, and I'm sure this is historical because it is very clear. The disciples of the Buddha come to the Buddha and they say, oh, we're meditating in this forest here, and we just feel such bad moods all the time. And then they say, it must be the spirits of this forest. This is so interesting. They're blaming it on the spirits, isn't it interesting? It must be the spirits of this forest that are causing our bad moods. And you know what the Buddha says? He says, practice maitri. He says, practice metta. Towards those spirits and towards your own states and towards all beings. And this is called the Metta Karaniya Sutta. Karaniya means you should do it. Karna chahiye in Hindi. Metta Karaniya means metta karna chahiye, you know, in modern Hindi. And then the Buddha says, just practice maitri. And then he explains how to practice maitri. You practice maitri like a mother who has embraced her only child. Her only child, he says. That's how you practice maitri for whoever you think is causing a disturbance. But the real thing with the twinkle in his eye is you're the one causing your own disturbance, not the spirits, right? But that's the twinkle in his eye. But then he says, you practice maitri or metta and it will dissolve. So this is the historical context of his disciples suggesting his disciples to practice maitri. All right, so let's finish here and see you soon. Is it in 2 weeks? All right, in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you, everyone. And enjoy your weekend. Be happy. That is maitri for yourself. May I be happy. May I be at ease. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.